Byemageddon is back with a vengeance. With only 6 teams in Major League Rugby, 2 of them off in week 6, fantasy managers are scrambling to fill their lineups. But no fret, the Fantasy Ruckers are here to help you out. Maddie and I break down the names you need to look out for on this week's waiver wire that you can plug into your lineup to get through another Byemageddon. We also recap the week 5 look ahead to week 6 and so much more. The Fantasy Ruckers show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 188 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR with you each and every single week. Matt Yee is here with me, Ryan Yee, as we break down another exciting week of Major League Rugby. Week 5 in the books, Maddie, and it feels like this season is flying by. But no less, here we go as we continue on as we reach the halfway point in what is the regular season of Major League Rugby.
Yeah, it feels like it just started, but yeah, it really does feel like it just started.
Yeah, no kidding at all. Of course, a shortened season than in seasons past with a later start. Obviously, less teams, 10 total weeks of the regular season, and again, we are jumping into week 6. So week 6, that is the first and only Byemageddon of Fantasy MLR this year. California Legion not playing this week. Anthem Rugby Carolina not playing this week as they had the first week in the books to play. But no less, here we are to get through these matches here. So an important episode, Maddie, because of course with only 4 teams playing, managers are going to be looking for those players to fill those spots with those 2 teams not playing this week. So obviously a very important waiver wire breakdown we'll have coming up in this episode. We'll, of course, recap everything that went down over the past weekend. Vandy will join us in a little bit here to chat a little bit about what he's seen so far this fantasy MLR season. Back-to-back losses for Vandy here, but not swaying his confidence going through this. And he has a great tip for league managers that may be in the same shoes that he's in, starting out the season a little bit slow. And then, of course, talk a little TFR Betting Challenge, who he has found a cash cow that has been just absolutely raking in the wins for him. And unfortunately, at my expense, giving him the big lead in the TFR Betting Challenge. Of course, we'll talk about that, and then a Rucking rundown of the 2 matches we do have coming up in week 6 here, Maddie. But hey, Maddie, like you said, flying by, have a lot of solid competition, obviously a handful of different results here this past weekend. Overall sentiment of Major League Rugby season so far as we continue to march on through here.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels like anybody can beat anybody except Chicago. Nobody can beat Chicago. So, yeah, it's 5 teams that are battling it out and 1 team that's just above the rest. So, you like to see it. At least it's all 5 teams. Usually there's only 1 team that's kind of just losing all the time.
Well, hey, Maddie, from a fantasy sense, though, Matt, you're feeling pretty good. Obviously, last week, having a pretty big win. And then, of course, rolling in as you bounce back from that tough loss. Fantasy-wise, feeling pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, you get your first win, get the monkey off your back, and yeah, you like to see it.
Yeah, love to see it. All right. Well, hey, no time to waste here. Let's get into this upcoming, this past weekend's matches and go through everything that we saw in exciting week 5 of Major League Rugby.
Quick Tap Recap.
All right, episode 188, quick tap recap. And before we dive into these matches, man, let me just say you kind of mentioned it. Any given week can have a team coming out on top of the win, and we kind of knew that coming into this year with the reduced teams to six, with the strengthened squads. It seemed like really for every single squad, and how well some of these teams have been capitalizing on those roster movements. I think everyone can talk about Chicago being just that, who is the lone team that has yet to be beaten this season, which of course we'll get into here in just a sec. But I almost feel like Maddie that with these six teams, maybe excluding Chicago, I don't know, you and I growing up, right? You playing Pokemon, and I'm gonna get to where this all
Mhm.
relates here in a sec, but um where you have the strengths and weaknesses kind of match up, where obviously the water beats the fire, the fire beats the grass, all that. I feel like we have just that in this season of Major League Rugby, where certain teams obviously match up well against other teams, and it's not so much with other teams, which is causing some of this kind of competitive nature here that we've seen so far in this game. Of course, Anthem Rugby Carolina started off fast, obviously having a tough loss this past weekend. California Legion obviously struggling against other teams, but here looking pretty good against DC. I feel like there are some of these matchups that we are pointing out that really makes it cyclical here in this MLR and just reinforces that fact you're talking about, Matt, that really depending on the given rugby Saturday or Saturday or Friday, really anyone can come out with the win there.
Yep, or Sunday. But yeah, it's really that way again, except Chicago.
Yeah, except for Chicago. So let's get into that one first to start off with, Maddie. We'll start off with Seattle hosting Chicago in this one. And I mentioned it last week. It really does feel like a step above the rest, the Chicago team. And this is a Chicago roster that even rotated their squad coming into this matchup this past weekend, where we had teams, or I should say, we had seen players that we hadn't seen all season long. But yet Chicago has the confidence to put them out there against a Seattle Seawolves team that seems to now be struggling. I think the sentiment for a lot of people heading into this matchup, especially with the Seawolves at home, is, hey, I think we're going to find a lot about this team, and kind of a similar sentiment to the New England Free Jacks, which we'll get into here in just a sec. But I think there was a little bit of hope that Seattle would be able to bounce back here and kind of show themselves against a team that feels like they are able to put down a quote unquote secondary team. And yeah, it wasn't even close off the get-go. A whole bunch of points scored in this matchup. Chicago winning this one 59-22, and really wasn't close all the way along. The defensive woes for Seattle continues to be those defensive woes. And now we're looking back here with Seattle last in MLR, with Chicago on top.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking back to the time where I thought that Seattle was going to win it. But yeah, you score nine tries, you're probably going to win the game. Yeah, Chicago just dominating. I mean, we see some really big games from guys like Brock Webster, Mark O'Keefe. Obviously, in a game like that, your back three is going to do really well. But yeah, I mean, I was looking through the team of the week that they announced today, and it's like you see that there's six Chicago guys on there, and you see exactly.
Yeah, no kidding at all. I mean, you look at our top 4 point scorers this week. You mentioned when you score nine tries, obviously there's going to be a whole bunch of fantasy points going around, and our top four fantasy point scorers in the past week were all Chicago Hounds players. So, I guess a couple to shout out here for our team of the week. We got in our back three player team of the week, Brock Webster, who scored 22.7 fantasy points over the weekend. Brandon Harvey, our second row team of the week player, at 10.9 fantasy points per week, or fantasy points in week 5. And then Matt Awaru, in his first appearance of 2026, comes on hot with 17.6 fantasy points of his own. So 3 team of the week players on our Fantasy Ruckers team of the week that was announced today, or I should say on Tuesday, was just electric there. And obviously there's a whole bunch of other players that we're going to get to here from a fantasy sense that showed out.
Yep. And I mean, yeah, Brock Webster with the hat trick. Kudos to him.
And I mean, talk about a guy that I guess kind of flew under the radar for us. I mean, we were talking about Santiago Videla coming into the season, the move of the 2026, uh,
Mm.
champion or 2025 championship MVP, making the move from the New England Free Jacks to the Chicago Hounds. You can speculate that a part of that, the Canadian international having to make the move because of some of the international switches there with the Canadian eligibility now falling under those international rules and not falling under those domestic guidelines there. And I think I look back and it's kind of funny that we talk about, having Santiago Videla in our top five, and looks like it should have been Brock Webster that should have been
Mm.
in there. And some of the league managers that we had were quick to type on Discord to say, hey, watch out for Brock Webster. That might be our pick of the year there, and it ends up kind of showing that here as he's continued to improve each and every week. 3 tries, 74 meters gain in this one, and a tackle. If he's continuing to be the go-to starter for the best team in MLR, Brock Webster is going to easily finish in the top five here for fantasy MLR.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if he keeps doing that, he's going to see himself very high up in the rankings.
Mark O'Keefe, the other back three player here to kind of get overshadowed here by Brock Webster, but still a very good performance of his own. 18 and a half fantasy points, 63 meters gained, a try assist, 14 tackles on the wing. Pretty impressive stuff. And scores his third try of the season, third try in 4 matches. Only one match so far that he's appeared in that he has not scored a try. Mark O'Keefe is having a good time finding that try zone here and being a big benefactor of the success that Chicago is seeing.
Yep, 100%. And sure glad I have him.
Matawaru, he was on my scrummy team, which, fun fact, Fantasy Ruckers continue to kill it at that fantasy platform,
Oh,
number
yeah.
one, by a bigger margin here. And it's been fun to kind of dominate another fantasy landscape so far. I know that things can change quickly, but we're definitely gonna soak in and bathe in our successes here to start this season. But Awaru, when he got the start, again, his first appearance in 2026 so far, he took advantage of it. 17 tackles, a breakdown steal, 50 meters gained, and a try for those 17.6 fantasy points. We've seen him before be successful, the Canadian international, and he fully seized that opportunity here to get the start at the eighth position for Chicago.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, that's why. Yeah, I mean, that's why he sees the opportunity.
Mason Flesh, 17 and a half fantasy points in the 52 minutes he played, 42 meters gained, two tries, and 6 tackles there. Again, those are the 4 top fantasy point scores here in week 5, and obviously the 4 to lead this match as well. A couple other guys to note here. Tian Lutz in his first start this year and first appearance this year, 12.4 for him. And in terms of other things here, just pulling this up here. Um, Tian Lutz, Brandon Harvey, our second row player of the week that I mentioned, 10.9. Peyton Wall, first appearance we've seen him. Obviously, a lot of hype happening for the rookie 2025 rookie of the year there, 10.7 for him. Theo Furry, again, continues to be, I think, the front row player that we're all going to look back on, was the guy that was worth the draft capital that a lot of people probably got him in. He's now gone 3 out of 4 matches at least double digits, 4
Mm.
tries on the season in 4 matches. Theo Furry at the front row position continues to be ahead above the rest in terms of front row players here. What a luxury to have when you have him outside of, like, even me. Like, for me, I don't have any of shares of Theo Furry, and it feels like I'm scrambling each and every week to try to find a front row guy to fill in
Yep.
that spot to get me just 3 points, and you have Theo Furry laughing at that. He's cashing in almost 10 every single matchup.
Yeah, for sure. It's really comforting knowing you got the guy.
Yeah, Thomas Caceres then to round it out, second double-digit fantasy point performance of the year for him at 10.1. Really, right now though, Maddie, is it a thought of just, you got a Chicago guy, you're playing them above the rest, no questions asked when it comes to those lineup decisions, because really they are playing that much better than everyone else.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, when they're putting up that many points, it always bodes well for fantasy, and you want a piece of that every chance you can get. So, yeah, and they're doing this against teams where you think are good. So, yeah.
And to switch onto the Seattle side, Duncan Matthews was the kind of lone big time point scorer here. This is kind of what he does despite everything going wrong, maybe seemingly for Seattle. Matty, you're a big Duncan Matthews guy. I mean, look at
Hmm.
this stat line. This is something that you are quite accustomed with. 112 meters gained, a try, and three tackles there for 17.1 fantasy points. He's a guy like if he's starting at the fullback position, regardless win or loss, the meter eater, the bomb diffuser back there with those kick returns is going to get you those points. And he's one of the few examples where, yeah, the team that he's on may not be scoring a whole bunch of tries, but he still has a floor that's going to get you at least double digit points every single matchup.
Yes, sir. That's Duncan Matthews for you. And yeah, he just racks it up.
Really, no one else on Seattle's side from a fantasy sense. Looking forward to how are you feeling as a Davy Kutzer owner? Not that you're lacking any of the talent of the of Davy Kutzer, obviously, but being the fly half of what is now, I guess, from a standing standpoint, the worst MLR team in the league. He
Mm.
scores 9.9 in this one. And I think even for us, like in our main league, we used our first round pick on him. You talk about not having kicking points this season. He's only passed the double digit mark once so far this year. Are you starting to hit the panic button as a Davy Kutzer owner?
I mean, look, halfbacks are just generally scoring less this year, obviously, because we took scoring opportunities from them. So yeah, I think it's more so of just adjusting your expectations from the position.
Probably easy to say now that is it more of a halfback thing or Seattle thing where Davy Kutzer's looking like that first round capital is probably not worth what he was on, or should it's
Well,
to
it's
be
probably a
determined?
mixture of both. But yeah, to be determined. I think we're halfway through, still halfway to go.
Okay. All right. So moving on here now to the next matchup here, New England Free Jacks hosting Anthem Rugby Carolina. And this one is interesting because I think, again, the wave of people and the excitement of this Anthem Rugby Carolina team for starting out as well as they have now gone what three straight matches to lose this year so far, or I should say two straight losses with a win in between that other. So three of the last four, but they fall short against the New England Free Jacks, who showed glimpses, I guess, now of what they could be. And I mean, talk about a relief for Free Jacks fans and for Free Jacks who had yet to win a game in Major League Rugby this season so far, but 1-3 now for the Free Jacks to now scooch ahead of the Seattle Seawolves at the fifth spot, Anthem now at the third spot with the final result of 38 to 26. Now, Anthem hung in it. New England looks strong. But again, I think there are just aspects of this Anthem team where we were kind of reminded that, yes, this is still a growing and developing team. They make mistakes and often make mistakes in very crucial times, whether that be turnovers, and things like that. And that was evident in this matchup where, yes, you can count New England out. Because of the way that they started, we've seen this storyline before, and maybe hindsight is 2020, where you have an experienced team like the New England Free Jacks, albeit a team that has a bunch of new faces on there, and with a team that seems to be on the up and up. This is a reminder that hey, Anthem still has ways to go here if they want to be, I guess, a quote unquote powerhouse in this league, and this was a reminder of just that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think Anthem continues to have this similar thing of not quite being able to convert enough to be able to win games and win these tight games. So I think that's just the nature of them being young. But yeah, New England Free Jacks finally getting on the win column, or getting one in the win column. So like to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Only one fantasy TFR Team of the Week member from this match, and that is Sion Tupo at 13.2 fantasy points, our front row player of the week. He looked good. And I mean, let me talk about, if I'm remembering correctly, just a dive of dives into the try zone for the New England Free Jack player there, scoring a try with 55 meters gained, nine tackles in the 54 minutes he played. I'm not too sure how many people had Sion Tupuo in his in the lineup this week. Being this his first start at the hooker position, great pickup if you were able to spot him out there and get him into your lineup after those lineups were released, because he definitely rewarded you there with that double digit fantasy point performance.
and
Other
Wayne Vanderbank, surprisingly, with
Yes, yes, yes. I should actually mention that Wayne Vanderbank was also our TFR Team of the Week player. 12.6 fantasy points for him, which is funny enough because I feel like the center position has been almost muted a little bit this year, where
Mm,
we're seeing just a little bit less points coming from that, which I think a lot of people liked having a foundation of a solid center come out. And who would have thought that, and we'll talk about him in just a bit here, but Cash Maluia being one of not only the top center players in point scoring so far this year. I know there's another game in hand that California has, but also one of the top fantasy MLR options right now. I think just goes to show you kind of how crazy the center position has been. Nonetheless, the Wayne Vanderbank, yeah, 12.6 fantasy points for a TFR team of the week, or I should say co-center TFR team of the week, because Cash Malawia also having 12.6 fantasy points. But in this one, a try, 34 meters gained, 14 tackles as he goes in there. I mean, he's a guy I think that, you know, I know that he was playing the 13 and Ben Lesage was playing the 12, but knowing that they've been kind of having a rotation of centers there with the New England Free Jacks to start the
mm.
season. And I think knowing that, Ben Lesage is someone we're probably not going to see for a little bit. Not too sure what the exact finalized I guess punishment was for that red card he received last week, but I think you can pretty much slot it down now that Wayne Vanderbank will be starting here on out here, which I know for you, Maddie, who selected him in the first round, you got to be pretty happy with that. And now he has double-digit fantasy point performances in the back-to-back weeks that he started so far this year.
Yeah, can't complain as an owner of him. Can only complain about how bad the New England Free Jacks are.
Nathan Salmon is a guy that I think if you were able to scoop him up on waiver wire to start the year, is a guy that's paying dividends for you. He's been pretty consistent for you. Hasn't scored less than 7 fantasy points this year so far. 12.3 in this past matchup against Anthem Rugby Carolina. The 70 minutes he played, the try, 46 meters gained, 9 tackles. He has yet to have maybe that explosive game where he's reached 20 points in a game, which again is hard to get for anyone. But I will say the eye test pass for Salmon, because when you see him get the ball in hand, the way that he runs, the way that he is so attacking and has the ability to possibly pop off for a big time play there. Salmon is someone that I've been impressed with the New England Free Jacks, and I think should continue to be a guy that people should feel pretty confident in. Has a pretty solid floor, and you add a try scoring ability to that, has the ability to possibly score even higher than how high he scored so far with 16 fantasy points, 12.3 this past week.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah, good to see.
Let's switch on over though, Maddie, to the Anthem Rugby Carolina side. Handful of double-digit fantasy point scores in this one. Malachi Esdale at 14.8, back three players, 125 meters gain in this one. So again, doesn't even
Nice.
need to try to hit that 15 point, almost 15 point fantasy point mark, but he does that this past week with those meters that he ate. Baden Godfrey in his second start of the year, back-to-back weeks, 101 meters gain and 12 tackles for him. Good to see that from the 8-man. Julian Roberts, who is a guy that we scooped off waivers, has been impressive. One of the top 3 fantasy options so far this year. Again, a match in hand with that first round matchup against California, but nonetheless is a guy that has been so consistent. 4 out of 5 matches that he's played in so far has been double digits. He's only scored 1 try so far this season. This is the first match that he's reached triple digit meters gained, but a guy that obviously is very effective in the Anthem Rugby Carolina system right now, and he's a guy that is a lock for people right now in people's lineups, and we've enjoyed having him on the TFR team so far this year.
Yeah, for sure. And those are the guys that, you can rely on regardless of the tries, the guys who can Duncan Matthews, Julian Roberts types players. You like to have those guys in your lineup.
Yep. Peyton Talea Elalio, 11.8 fantasy points. His first try of the year helps him push over that double-digit mark for the first time this season. Dom McKenna has looked pretty solid every time he signed, ever since he signed with Anthem Rugby Carolina, obviously with Junior Gaffa being on the injury report as of right now. 11.7 fantasy points in this one. Again, the eye test is what really pops off for me, and Akina has looked good so far. And again, I think you're just waiting for him to pop off. And always love to see a halfback reach double digits. Zion going at 11.2 fantasy points gets on the board there with his first try of the season and tacks on 44 meters gained for 11.2 fantasy points in week 5.
I'm going.
All right.
He always finds a way.
Always finds a way. Your favorite player there, Maddie. All right. Let's talk about this last matchup, Maddie. California Legion, Old Glory DC. And this is exactly the matchup where this is what California can do, right? They don't dominate the possession. In fact, they're, I think, around the 40% mark in this one. And it was Old Glory DC that had it a majority of the time. DC failing to capitalize on many of the opportunities that they had. But when you give California Legion the ball, they have the wherewithal and the ability with the way that they play to pop off for points, despite not maintaining or controlling the possession in a match. So 36-23 win for California Legion, a win that I think resets Old Glory DC, who had looked good these past couple weeks. And then California Legion now hop up to second place at 3-2. Old Glory DC now to 2-2. But it's exactly that though, Maddie. And it's kind of to that sentiment I was talking about where you have these matchups that are almost like weaknesses and strengths. And Old Glory DC has been so strong in their defensive effort. And have really capitalized. We saw it in the New England Free Jacks game. We saw it against Anthem Rugby Carolina. But all it takes is a mistake or two for if a team is going to capitalize on that, it's going to be the Legion, and they did this in this past match.
Yeah. I mean, Cal Legion, they found a way. I mean, they have flashes of brilliance. Sometimes they aren't, but today they look good.
Fantasy sense though, great to see Joe Mano back on top of the leaderboard here in this matchup. The biggest point score in this one at 16.9 fantasy points. A lot of that obviously coming off of the back of the intercepted try that he scored that pushed him into the triple digit meters gain at 104 meters gained. He's now gone 3 straight matches with a try. Is this the man that is going to break the TFR curse as he continues to rise in point total every single match? And if the trend is to be followed after this bye week, he should come up stronger than ever because he's on course to eventually hit that 20 point mark.
Yeah, I mean, we love to see Joe Mano back in his form.
Ben Houston, our back row TFR team of the week here at 15 fantasy points. Again, obviously the loss of Christian Poitevin is a tough one. However, Ben Houston is not too bad of a guy to step into that back row room and kind of allow that.
Yeah.
Ed Timpson, if you had put my money on Timpson being our leading fantasy point scorer after 5 weeks, I know again, California having the match in hand with that opening week, so we'll see how it all shakes out this weekend with only the 2 matches. But if you had told Ed Timpson was up there, Ben Houston in the 3 matches he played, I think from a point per match point total has been electric, right? You have 4 tries in 3 matches for Ben Houston, 15 fantasy points in this one. Only needs 18 meters again, but the double try brace effort gets him in that TFR team of the week conversation. And Ben Houston, a guy that we drafted, has been so electric to have, and he's so fun to watch because you know that he's dynamic and really is the perfect player that fits in the California Legion system.
Yeah, and the perfect player to be a fantasy relevant guy because he's wanting the ball in hand, and when he gets the ball in hand, he's scary.
Absolutely. Cash Maluia, again, we talked about him briefly before as our co-TFR team of the week center. Has only started 2 matches in the past 2 weeks, and he's he's embracing and taking the most of those advantages because he's scored his first try of the year to get into the 12.6 fantasy point conversation with also 14 tackles. Was texting Andrew Coe, who's obviously in our OG league and absolutely wiping the floor with us. I feel like we made a mistake, Maddie, of inviting him to our league as he's the only
Oh.
undefeated league member in our OG league remaining. And he scooped up and picked up Cash Maluia on the waiver wire and kind of beat us to the punch for that, bid a little bit higher than we did. And obviously, the strong gets stronger as he has another addition to that. We talked about Ed Timpson, 12.6 fantasy points in this one, and then our final team of the week, TFR team of the week player is Gonzalo Bertranu, who this is why you picked him, right? At the halfback position. Five fantasy matches he started, four of them in double digits. In this past week,
Mm.
12 fantasy points for him with the 32 meters gain, two try assists. He has now six try assists on the season so far in the five matches he played. League managers are going to miss him this week. Question for you, Maddie: Gonzalo Bertranu or Davy Kutzer the rest of the way?
You know what? I mean, kind of hard not to go Gonzalo Bertranu, but I would go Davy Kutzer just because there's still a while to go.
Yeah, for me, it's Bertranu for the floor, Kutzer for the ceiling. Right.
Mm.
That's I think you know what you're gonna get out of Bertranu. But there's untapped potential there with Kutzer. We saw it last week with that Seattle Seawolves match with the what he was able to do in week 4 in that performance. So just an interesting dynamic there. Obviously, the fly half, scrum half dynamic. The fly half has always won that conversation, but I guess with the
Hmm.
removal of kicking points, that has just reflected the sentiment in terms of how narrow that gap has come closer with the removal of kicking points and the value that Bertranu now brings. Closer to Kutzer in this season, particularly. Taz Smith, 11 fantasy points for him as he scores a try in his reserve substitution there. And then, yeah, that rounds out the double digit fantasy point scores for the California Legion. On the Old Glory DC side, Benjamin Bonasso and Damian Hoyland lead the way. Hoyland, the highest DC point score at 15.9 fantasy points. This time starting on the wing, typically a fullback player, only two fantasy or two starts this season so far. Max Schumacher starting at the 15 position. And yeah, you didn't come away with the win for Old Glory DC, but when you have an option of having, I think they're starting to see the talent that Schumacher brings to the table and then putting Hoyland on the wing. How does that concern you from a fantasy value perspective when you obviously drafted Hoyland to maybe have that floor of a fullback, but apparently on the wing does just as well with 142 meters gained, four tackles, they give him 15.9.
Yeah, I think you answered your own question. Apparently, it doesn't matter.
Does the volatility though worry you at all? Do you think Hoyland will still be able to
I
do
mean,
Hoyland
is
things?
can it be volatile if it's just two games? I think we'll have to
Well, no,
see.
I'm
It's kind
saying
of wait and see.
I guess more so like without these two matches knowing like the volatility of just the wing position versus the fullback position, right?
Oh.
Like you had that floor of fullback, maybe the involvement a little bit heavier and the meters gain might be there a little bit more. Does that concern you at all with the Hoyland situation with Schumacher kind of looking to fill in the shoes there and maybe Hoyland becoming a wing option for DC?
Oh, well, I like Schumacher at 15, that's for sure. But in terms of Hoyland, I mean, good players are good players. If Joe Mono plays on the wing, we don't blink an eye when we draft him. I think Damian Hoyland, not that he's Joe Mono level,
Hmm.
but he's a good enough level to where 11 or 15, I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. All right, Benjamin Benasso, we mentioned 13.4 fantasy points. I think fantasy managers were waiting for a performance like this at some point. Obviously, a tackle machine. He has double-digit tackles every single match so far this season, but this time finally breaking through on the meters gained side that has helped him put into the 13.4 as he had 94 meters gained this past week. And then a couple other guys to note here in the double digits. Kirby Myhill scores the try back-to-back weeks with tries now at the starting hooker position for Old Glory DC, gets 10.7 there with double-digit tackles as well. And then Corey Daniel, I mean, again, Corey Daniel, this is exactly what he's going to do and what you expected with another double-digit tackle performance and that baseline just being so strong for you. If he's able to just get those tackles and add a little bit more on that offensive end, he's going to get you double digits easily every single week.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, hey, another week in the books. Again, top players from the entire week. Front row, Sion Tupou with 13.2 on New England Free Jacks. Second row, Brandon Harvey at 10.9, doing that with Chicago. Chicago's Matt Awaru in his first start, 17.6. The halfback position, Gonzalo Bertrano at 12 fantasy points as our halfback TFR Team of the Week player. Wayne Vanderbeek, Cash Malawia, both with 12.6 for the center position. And back three, Brock Webster, doing Brock Webster things that we should have expected with 22.7 fantasy points. All right. Well, a clear picture there here now for Major League Rugby as we now head into a Byemageddon. A Byemageddon that has California Legion and Anthem Rugby Carolina not playing. We will be depending on the Seattle Seawolves, Chicago Hounds, Old Glory DC, and the New England Free Jacks to pull their weight here this upcoming weekend. I know a lot of fantasy managers will be turning to the waiver wire to try to fill some of those spots. No shortage of players. No Joe Mano. No Cash Malawia. No Kobe Mill, no Stephen Crimp, no Rory Van Voot, guys that we won't see. So hey, let's get into what I think many would say is the most important waiver wire of the year.
Waiver wire breakdown.
All right, waiver wire breakdown. Let's talk about some of these options. Now, before we get into that, from a dropping standpoint, Maddie, going to be hard for players, especially with only 6 teams. There are going to be some tough decisions for people to possibly make the space for guys that they'll need to stream at least this week. Because let me tell you, the waiver wire is barren. We talked about this last episode. The options are slim. And really, I think the mindset heading into this week is that you just need someone to fill in for 1 week that is not going to burn you. I think going through all these players and the players that we're talking about, there's not really many league winning players or matchup winning players that you'll find on the waiver wire. It's interesting to see how those have developed. People have caught on to some of those players that were available. We've talked about them on seasons past, whether or weeks past, whether that be a Lance Williams, a Max Schumacher, guys that were available but that'll have cemented themselves in the lineup and are fantasy relevant. Those guys are all gone. These are guys that are streamers that you will be looking for. So, Maddie, where is that line for you when it comes to having one of these California or Anthem Rugby Carolina guys on your bench? They're on bye. You know that they're not playing this week. Where's that line where maybe that you may have to make a tough decision to drop one of them? Obviously, you're not going to be dropping your Joe Manos or your Cash Malawias or things like that. But do you drop a Joe Tofetti, even though he's a hooker position and he's not going to play? Do you drop a Ramiro Gurvich or a Campbell Robb? Because, yeah, they're a front row position. You've been hanging on the teeth with them. But is it like for any of these front row options, is that something that you're going to swap? Something's got to give, Maddie. And is it going to be one of these bye week guys?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I know I've got 3 Anthem Carolina hookers, and you know, someone's gonna have to go. So yeah, I would even throw Seth Smith in there because he hasn't started yet this year. Um, and yeah, it's looking pretty grim for him too. So I think you're willing to drop, and it's also halfway through a season. If a guy has not played yet, and it is halfway through a season, and there's no expectations of him to play, yeah, it might be time to drop him.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I dropped Seth Smith in our OG league. I made the decision, or we made the decision to do that because of that. So I think those are, but like guys that are on the cusp, do you drop an Eric Storty? Like he's
No.
been starting, but he hasn't really done much. He's not starting at that center position. Akina is there, and you would think that with Goffa out, he'd be thing. He's been playing 15, 11. They've been moving him around. He just hasn't been like, is that a guy that I know name brand? You wouldn't have never thought that you'd be saying that, but now, 4 weeks in, he's a guy that really hasn't impressed. Kind of that profile of player. Is it something that you're gonna have to give?
I mean, if you have to, you have to. If you got nobody to play, you might have to. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a tough one.
That'll be the tough decision that I think league managers will have to be playing this one. All right, well, let's get into these waiver wire candidates here and talk about some of the guys that you need to look out for. These are all guys that are under 50% owned, and should be available on your waiver wire, giving you a handful of options. Because again, I believe that this is the most important waiver wire of the season so far. I'll start off on the front row position. Ignacio Piculo is the guy that I'm mentioning here as my waiver wire pickup. He was my waiver wire pickup last week. He's my waiver wire pickup this week because apparently people don't listen to this waiver wire segment, and again did not see that go around again. Nothing flashy here. You're not getting a Theo Furry on the waiver wire. However, kind of fits exactly that mold of this is a guy that's not going to burn you and is a guy that's going to consistently get you at least 3 to 7 points at your front row position, which sounds pretty good to me as a guy that has been streaming front row players since week one. And it's a guy that has played the full 80 minutes. He's played 7 minutes. This past week was the lowest that he played. And he still got 4.2 fantasy points and hit the double digit tackle mark in this match. So again, this is a guy that slots right in there. He's going to get you at least a handful of points there, and he's a guy that you can kind of pick off the waiver wire, plug into your lineup. You are one of those guys that has a Joe Tofetti, has a Campbell Robb that has been using that this week, and I think really outside of the try scoring ability, which unless Pukulo gets lucky here and finds his way in the try zone, he's going to get you just that minus the try scoring upside. And a fun tidbit here as well, New England has allowed the most front row fantasy points this season so far. So the matchup lines up well with Seattle taking on New England. Ignacio Pukulo at 25% owned.
Yeah, I like it. I agree with what you say. I think Nate Sylvia is another option as well. He's 0% owned, and he's kind of a similar build in terms of fantasy production.
Yeah, Nate Sylvia, again, a guy that is gonna get you tackles here and just get that floor base there. And I will add his counterpart, Sion Tupuo, who is our TFR front row of the week. If he is starting at the hooker position, again, this coming week, again, keep an eye for that lineup. He might be just a flyer to have. And if he doesn't, then you can pivot to Nate Sylvia there. So if I had to order them, I would go Nacho Baculo, Sion Tupo, Nate Sylvia in my order of fantasy bids there. Sion Tupo then dropping after Nate Sylvia if he's not obviously starting this week.
Yep. Let's move on to second row.
All right, second row position. Rob Harley is my waiver watch pickup of the week. 15.3 fantasy points. He is 50% owned. So a guy that is the highest owned guy that we're going to see on this match, but he's the last remaining second row player, at least for me, that again, a guy that's going to get you points. Second row position, you're not getting a crazy amount of points here. Again, the guys that you may have been able to find on the waiver wire early in their season, and Thomas Caceres, Piers von Dadelsen that I talked about the week before, those guys are gone. And you go through the list and how fast those numbers have spiked. Those are the people that did listen to this waiver wire breakdown in those players. But this is the last really second row player that has started every single match so far this year. Played 80 this past week and got 5.1 fantasy points. All he needs to do is score a try for you, which I know is easier said than done, and he all of a sudden becomes a pickup of the week when it comes to that. But the floor is there for you, and I think in a week where second row players are going to be hard to come by, if you have a Will Sherman or a Jason Dom on California, this is a guy that can go right in there for you.
Yep, I got him. I mean, he's nothing special, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then lastly, again, I told you 50% owned. So if he's not available, another guy to look at is Brandon Harvey, our second row player of the week. Again, last week was his first start. He may be coming off of the bench. But keep an eye out. You never know. Maybe he has earned his playing time to be in that first 15 there. But even again, in a week where there's not going to be many players, he's shown that even off the bench, he can be pretty solid for you as well. So he's a guy that if you miss out on Rob Harley, Brandon Harvey is definitely widely available. Or I should say available in every league at 0% owned right now. So a guy that you can pick up. All right, let's move on to the back row position, Maddie. This one was a tough one, and it's a battle between upside and consistency. What are you looking for, and what are you willing to risk heading into this waiver wire period? For consistency and a good streaming option that again fits the mold of what we've been talking about, a guy that's not going to burn you, he's going to get you 6 fantasy points, 4 to 6 fantasy points, and he's going to not have you goose egg a certain position. And for me, that's Alex McKenzie. He's a guy on the New England Free Jacks that has started every single match so far this year. He doesn't play the full 80. He'll be lucky if he passes the 60-minute mark, which I know is not valuable from a fantasy sense. However, he has not scored lower than 3 fantasy points this season, albeit he hasn't scored higher than 6.7 that he scored this past round 5. But going to hover around the 7 to 12 tackles, has the ability to maybe pop off for double-digit fantasy meters here from a 10 to 20 range. But then again, 2 breakdown steals. The possibilities of him to be productive are there just because he's starting for the New England Free Jacks. And they take on a Seattle Seawolves team who just had over 59 points scored on them, right? And if New England's going up on the up and up, maybe he can be a guy that catches in on that. So that's my floor play there. My risky play, Maddie, is Matt Awaru, because you cannot deny what he was able to do in his spot start. Will he be starting in this upcoming week against the Old Glory DC side that is looking to turn things around? I don't know, but he scored 17.6 fantasy points in this
Yep.
past matchup, right? So you pick him up. You figure out, okay, is he a guy that is going to be starting? If he's not in that starting match day 23, because I mean, you could even play him, I think, coming off of the bench if you wanted to. Maybe a little bit riskier there. But if he's not in the lineup, you then just pivot to one of these other guys. Marno Redalingus is one guy, 14.8 fantasy points, 50% owned. But that's the upside I'm talking about. That's the one guy that I think can be a matchup winner for you because, again, he could be a back row player on the best team. He just had a fantastic outing. There's a chance he's not even in the lineup this upcoming week. Again, we haven't seen him all year long. However, if he is, he can do what he did this past weekend in getting nearly 20 fantasy points. What are your thoughts on that? Awaru or McKenzie here on the waiver wire in your preference?
I mean, depends where you are. I think if you're low in the standings, you might as well just take a shot in the dark at Awaru. Maybe he becomes a league winner. I don't think Alex McKenzie is going to be a guy that's going to be of any value moving forward.
Yeah, really just a streamer this week. Awaru is the one guy that we're going to talk about here on this waiver wire that has season-long appeal and that's a big if, he starts to more consistently get into that lineup after having his first start and a big start at that. All right, Maddie, let's move on to the halfback position. Again, this one is barren. Like there's not many options out there. However, at 50% owned, he didn't start this past week. However, he has seemingly been the guy that has been the majority starter on this, and that's Ruben DeHaas. He started every match going into this past weekend. Michael Baska being the guy that gets into the rotation with this secondary Chicago lineup. I expect DeHaas to be back as a starter this upcoming week. But the good news here is that Michael Bosca is 0% owned. So the opportunity to get the starting scrum half for the Chicago Hounds is one that is a possibility that I think any fantasy manager at this point of the year would like to take. So my plan here, or my strategy, would be put in a bid for Ruben DeHaas, 50% owned. If he's not available in your league, or if DeHaas ends up not being the spot start here this upcoming week, Michael Bosca is there too. So you have a quick option. You'll just have to monitor when those lineups come up and pull the trigger quickly if you need to pivot. If you miss out on those two guys, though, the only other guy, again, that I would consider here on the waiver wire is John Lefevre. He is a guy that has been starting the past 3 games for Old Glory DC from a fantasy point output. Not great. I'll be honest with you, not great. But if I can get the scrum half that is going to start at least 70 minutes on a team, I'm taking it in a week that there are not many halfbacks that are available. So for me, at least, the strategy for me is DeHaas, top bid in this one. I can pivot to Lefevre, 0% owned if there. And if I do get DeHaas, I'm paying a close attention to that Chicago lineup because if for whatever reason Baska is the guy that starts this upcoming week, I'm quickly hitting that drop and add button for Baska this upcoming week.
Yeah, who cares? These guys suck.
All right. Then going into the center position, um, it's funny because we have the conversation, Maddie, where it feels like the center position is maybe underperforming this year so far.
Yeah, these
However,
guys suck too.
the center position seems to be the thing that everyone is holding on to and hoarding because you look down the list of uh centers that are under 50% owned. There's not many. There's not many. So really we are just throwing a dart at the dartboard in this one. And I guess
Oh, I think we should just hold the dart. There's no reason. There's nobody to pick up. I don't like if you need a center, I'm sorry. You didn't plan well. Back three. Who's up?
I will just this is a show that we provide some advice to. I will say
It's not advice when there's only one guy available to pick up.
Calvin
There's
Leal
only one option. You're telling them what? Some profound thing as if they got multiple options. This is the only one that they have.
Well, you're coming in hot. If you need a center position, you put yourself in that situation. Calvin Leo Lamaga is the guy that I'm going with.
Yeah, you
Has,
don't have a choice.
has only started one match this year so far at in round four, but this is me sugarcoating it, Maddie. Even coming off of the bench, he is somewhat okay for you, I guess. We'll get you
I
two
don't
to three
understand what we're
fantasy
doing here.
points.
What are we doing here? Let's just go to back
Okay,
three.
would you hold? Okay, you need
Why are we asking about? There's only one choice, Ryan, for center. You don't. There's only one choice. There's no decision making that has to be done. I don't understand what they're going to ask you.
Okay, this is the decision. This is the decision. Here's the situation I put you in. You have Rob Campbell or Joe Tofetti. You are sitting in the position where you don't have a backup center. Do you drop either of those for Calvin Lamaga? Or is the advantage of you having Tofetti and Campbell Robb in the future as a mainstay hooker going forward for you this season not worth the risk of losing them for a guy that's probably not going to score you many points this week?
Well, I don't need two fantasy points, so I'm not going to drop him for the only option on the
Okay.
waiver
That's
wire.
the question. I mean, hey, it'll be hurting if a manager loses by point whatever. We had our first tie of the year this past week, and Calvin Louis Lamaga, Maddie, could have been that difference. All right. Lastly, here, back three player. This is almost very similar to the center position because there's again not many options out there, but I will go with me at least.
You mean at
Noel.
least there's an option?
Yeah, Nolan Tuamohioloa. Tuamohioloa. Did I say that good? Um, he is taking on obviously the New England Free Jacks. 15 fantasy points on the season. Has had three straight starts here. Had 6.7 this past week. You're just hoping for a try. You're putting him in, and you're hoping for he gets his first try of the year. That is really the option here. Again, only 13% owned in this one. That is my back three. Pickup of the week.
Nice. I'll go Killian Coughlin for the back three. Cool.
It's tough sleddings here on the waiver wire. Either way, good luck in Byemageddon here. Good luck with finding those streamers here and powering through our only and first Byemageddon of the year. All right, Maddie, let's quickly look ahead to what's to come here in week 6.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, Rucking rundown here in week 6. Only 2 matches to go over. Maddie, this is probably the tightest that our picks have ever been in the history of us doing this show. After last week, 9-4. Devin Vanderpool sweeps the picks to get right back into the race at 8-5. Maddie, you're tied with me in first at 9-4, but it is a tight race in this one. So we open up only 2 matches, both on Sunday. The Free Jacks taking on the Seattles at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going New England with this one. It's the battle of the bottom 2 teams. However, I just cannot side with the Seattle Seawolves team that seems like it cannot play defense. The players are there. The names are there. The system or whatever may be going on is not there. Free Jacks looked pretty good against Anthem Rugby Carolina. I may be a victim of recency bias throughout all these picks going through, but this one I'm feeling pretty good with New England, and I'm happy to start any of those New England guys here this week, to take advantage of what has been a leaky Seattle Seawolves defense.
Yeah, battle of last place. I'll take last place. I'll take Seattle.
Okay, all righty. Is that just because to be different, or you actually believe Seattle can win this one?
Um, I'm just back in Seattle.
Back in Seattle. All right. Moving on to the Chicago Hounds versus Old Glory DC to follow that one up at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. This one should be an exciting one. I think if there's any team that can really give Chicago a fight. I really do think it is this Old Glory DC side because despite them being fourth place right now, again, they're tied 2-3 with Anthem Rugby Carolina. California obviously has been a heater, but they got destroyed by Chicago. Again, that's just the way that they play. I do think that the stability of how Old Glory DC plays, they just need to convert. They weren't able to do that against California, against a team that can capitalize it. They did everything right except for the converting part, and if they can just fix that, they have looked good at times. I do think that this will be a pretty close matchup, but Chicago has been Chicago, and I've said it last week. I'll say it again this week. They are a mile above the rest, and I will go with Chicago winning this one to stay undefeated so far this season.
Yeah, I'll match you on that one. I'll go Chicago.
All right, Chicago in that one. Starting all my Chicago guys, Old Glory DC. Happy to start those guys, obviously, because it's a Byemageddon, and you're gonna have to be stretching for guys either way. All right, well, hey, it's time to bring on our very good friend, a guy that loves to chat a little bit and maybe rub it in a little bit too much about how he has been doing in the TFR betting challenge. Devin Vandy Vanderpool joins us now to talk about his experience so far in fantasy MLR and the overs, the totals that he's cashing in on so far this year. And it's a moment that I think a handful of people have been at least waiting for here. Devin Vandy Vanderpool now joins us here on the Fantasy Rucker Show. Vandy, always good to have you. And it's hard to believe, like Maddie and I talked about, we are just rolling through this fantasy season. Man, it's going by quick.
I can't smile right now. I was at the dentist, so if I'm talking with a little bit of a slur, it's not my fault.
It ain't one too many drinks there on a Tuesday night.
No, no, playoff hockey hasn't started yet at this time, so no beers yet. I can't even
Just
smile. Look at this thing. Stop.
hey,
Stop
I
making me
love the
smile.
I love the commitment. Hey, go to the dentist, get the face frozen. Hey, you're hopping on the show. That's why this is a podcast, Vandy. Hey, you don't need to look. I know we're on the YouTube channel here, but hey, looks are second or take the back seat here on the Fantasy Ruckers
Right, you've
show.
known me long enough. Looks have never been my priority.
There you go. Well, hey, Vandy, speaking of fantasy, tough couple weeks for you there here in the listener league.
I talk too
Back to
much
back
crap.
losses. Back to back losses, but hey, 1-2. How are you feeling here after 3 weeks of fantasy MLR play? Still got five more to go here before the playoffs. Four teams, of course, make it out of the six in each league. Knowing you, your confidence probably hasn't wavered here, even though you sit at 1-2.
Nah. A couple fourth quarter losses, man. Nothing big deal. Lost by a couple points. I haven't got blown out of the water yet. So left Joe Mono on the bench. That's on me. Probably would have won it if I didn't. So you know what? I deserve to lose if I do stuff like that. So
There you go. It's those fantasy decisions where you outthink yourself, right? The
yeah.
simple decision lies right in front of you. However, you try to outplay the game, and the game often plays you.
You know what? The term, we've said it so many times, start your studs, and yet no matter how much fantasy you play, you end up hitting a point where you play too much, and then you go, oh, my studs are studs, but these guys, I seen Peyton
Yeah.
Wall going for the first time. I was like, yep.
Yeah. Hey, well, now you know heading into this week, of course, Byemageddon into this week. So the amount of players that people will be choosing from will be definitely limited here. Maddie and I just going over those waivers. But Vandy, that kind of leads into your Devin Vandy Vanderpool tip of the week in terms of, hey, we're 3 weeks into this thing. I know it's a shortened MLR season. You may be sitting 1-2. You may be sitting 0-3, but it ain't over till it's over. Isn't that right, Vandy?
Yeah, you know what? Tip of it, don't panic. My other tip was don't panic pickup. Now it's just don't panic, man. There's a lot of season left. There is nothing better. There's nothing sweeter than your team getting hot before playoffs, and that's how you get in. You don't want us to be hot at the beginning of the season. You want to be hot at the end. You don't get to choose, but hey, if I had a choice, I'd rather start 1-3, get cooking at the end, and then take out the playoffs again.
How many times have we been in a fantasy league, Vandy, whether it's hockey, football, where you're feeling good at the start of the season, you're going perfect, and then all of a sudden, when the most important time of the year comes, you just don't show up. It
Yeah.
happens too many times. That's why you never
I'm
put your foot
almost
off the
like
gas.
comfortable at this point with a 1-3 start. I'm like, okay, yep, yeah, I know the
Yeah.
boys. I know they're
Yeah.
gonna play some ball here, so there's nothing to
Yeah.
worry about.
Hey, it's the listener league. It's the best of the best, right? That want to
The best of
take
the
on
best.
you, myself, and Maddie here. But hey, yeah, that's a great tip though, Vandy. Making sure that hey, the fantasy season, as fast as it may seem that it's going by, it's a long one. And starting at
Hmm.
1-2 or even 0-3, always got that chance, especially with 4 out of 6 teams making the playoffs this season in fantasy MLR. You always got that chance. One
Hell yeah.
where people, or I should say myself, may not have a chance here is turning out to be the TFR betting challenge because, oh boy, you have found a cash cow, Vandy. Let's get into talking this week's TFR betting challenge.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, episode 188 TFR betting challenge. This is the perfect episode to have you on, Vandy. With all of this going on, for lack of better terms, you are kicking my ass when it comes to the TFR betting challenge right now. We're going to get into how that came to be. But the fact that I can't see that stupid smirk on your face because the dentist froze your face, I don't know if it makes it worse or if it makes it better because it's the half smile. And I feel like you're mocking me. You're
Yeah,
mocking me.
yeah, believe me, I'm trying to get the other half up there with seeing those numbers, man. I'm trying here. Wait, let me get up
Yeah.
here.
I
There we
mean,
go.
talk about being at the beginning of the season, having maybe some tough losses there, but going on a heater here over the
Yeah.
past couple of weeks. You're now up $40 here on the fantasy MLR season, while I take a hit going the other way, going deeper in the negatives, now at -9. So the net there, $50, Vandy, that you got on me now in the TFR betting challenge. The world goes back to normal here. This is how it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
I guess. Still confident that I can try to make a comeback here, but Vandy, why don't you talk on the thing that you have found that has earned you some big bucks over the course of at least the past couple of weeks?
Hey, the only trend I haven't seen are the boys are playing and they are gaming. And it doesn't matter when you bet an over. I don't care who wins. You know, you always got a little bit of you want to win. And guess what? In an over, doesn't matter. You want
Yeah,
points. Your team to get scored on, you start going, I needed 7. I needed 7. And you know what?
yeah.
That's what I've been doing. It's been overs, overs, and overs. The parlays haven't hit. The money lines haven't hit, but I tell you, I don't think I've missed an over except for one Legion game. I won't talk why. Maybe they only scored like 6, but that's here nor there.
Hey, 3 for 3 last week on your over
Or
bets.
straight
Literally on
jacks or something.
every single match you bet the over in that one, and you hit on every single one.
Yep.
And you didn't go light on that. You got the taste in that
Yep.
last week when you're like, oh, let's try this over thing, and then this week you were all in, and obviously that paid off here, getting you in the big positives here as we wrap up week 5 of the TFR betting challenge. So hey, can't I don't want to be the copycat and just hop on board. That ruins the fun of it. But Vanny, I got to give you props, man. You have found your niche here, and it's been paying off, literally and figuratively. But hey, we'll see. But all of you listen out there, I know a bunch of you are wagering here on MLR. Vandy has found the overs, and you did text me, Vandy. I said, hey, man, these over things are working for you. Vegas will eventually find out and will definitely correct itself. That's how it always happens. But hey,
Hmm.
if they're sitting around that 50-point total here, what it seems like around these past few weeks, it's been a easy pick to get that. So obviously, Vandy, that has led you to being up pretty big here as we head
Yeah,
into next
Vegas
week.
sent me a cease and desist letter, but I refuse. I will make all of you money and we will take it to Vegas and we'll drop the money on the front door and say, hey, we're buying this place now.
There you go. Yeah.
Everybody join me. We're hitting the overs and we're gonna go buy Vegas together. We'll buy
There
an
you go.
MLR team and we'll make it the best one.
There you go. Couldn't say it better myself. Well, hey, Vandy, always good to have you, my dude. Hey, I'm sure you'll turn the ship around in the listener league. Hey, Fantasy Ruckers, we're sitting pretty there in that in
Yeah, you know
second
what?
place here,
I'm putting my
two and
chips
one.
into that one. Not, we
Yeah.
just I've already won the
I will
listener
say
league, you know.
I might have made a mistake. I was telling Maddie that Andrew Coe right now 3-0. We might have invited a scary
I
beast
told you, I
into our
told you,
OG league.
he's got the insider knowledge, and he didn't help me at all. So he's already reported.
There, there you go. All right. Well, hey, Vandy, always good to see you, dude. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Rucker Show.
Peace and love.
All right. Well, thank you to Vandy for hopping on the show, even after a dentist appointment that had half of his face frozen. I couldn't help it, man. I felt like
I
his stupid smirk was even worse when he was
mm,
rubbing it in on the TFR betting challenge when only half of his face was working.
Gotta blame Doc for that one.
But either way, yeah, those overs, man. 3 for 3 this past week, and now he is leading in a net of almost $50 here heading into this.
Mm.
I gotta pick it up. I'm not doing too
Yeah,
hot.
clearly.
Yeah, clearly not. All right, well, Maddie, Byemageddon, it's ain't our first one that we've experienced in the time of doing this. It is the first one this season, the last one, luckily, this season with the only 6 teams. Any final words of advice for fantasy managers who have yet to experience Byemageddon or need some words of encouragement to get through probably the toughest week of fantasy MLR this year?
Mm, Godspeed. That's it.
Godspeed. That's it. Man, a few words. All right. Well, for Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and we'll see you next week. Another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.